It is 7 o'clock by my watch. We will call this meeting to order. It is the Tuesday, August 2nd, city council meeting. Let's start with roll call.
Councilman Becker.
Here.
Councilman Hartwick. Here. Councilman Johnson.
Here.
Councilman Schultz.
Here.
President Scheer.
Here. Agenda item 3, public hearings. This evening we have none. Agenda item 4 is public comment. Just a reminder that the city council will receive comments from city residents. Comments are generally limited to 3 minutes per individual. Anyone wishing to speak is required to sign up in advance or state the following items for the record when called upon. That would be name, address, subject matter, and contact information. No action will be taken on any public comments unless the item is also elsewhere on the agenda. We do have people signed up for public comment. We will start with Jeannie Newbold. Mic should be on, yes. You see a green light on that,
Yes,
perfect.
I do. So Jeannie Newbold, I live at 411 Mcmillan Street. My property, my entire length of my property is butted up to the proposed parking lot by Fort Healthcare. So you made this 3-minute rule for me, right? From the last time that I was here and spoke. But my concern is the same as the rest of our in the neighborhood. My number one thing is property value. My bedroom windows in my home, which I cannot move my bedrooms in my home, are 13 to 15 feet from said property line. Okay. So, and then I also was taking a look at SR5, the single residential 5, which is my home is currently, and the institutional, which is the zoning that the 4 houses that you're going to vote on tonight will be moved into. And just a few of the things is like green space. For an SR5, I need 30% green space. Institutional only needs 20%. Just some of the setbacks for an SR5 are 25 to 30 feet. Institutional are an average of 10 feet. So I have concerns there. Again, and this all directly affects my privacy, my security, my safety, how the noise, the lights, the drainage, we've all discussed this before. And I just want it for the record that those are my concerns, and as are the neighbors. And I will protect my property value as best I can. So, and I'll let that go at that. And I think that's all I've got to say. I wanted this documented. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Peter Olson.
Peter Olson, 703 Florence Street. Just that if you do put more drainage higher, is that going to start backing up the water a different way also? Someplace where it hasn't been before, because I live in a corner. And I also had a doctor's office in back of me. And 25, 30 years ago, we did have problems with the new lights they did put on, but they did correct them, but evidently things have changed since then. But like the neighbors are talking about, you know, once that starts and it keeps going further, are the other houses next to the lots and stuff, is the property value going to go down? And I mean, I don't plan on moving. I've been there 36 years, so not moving. So maybe by the time this is all done and completely figured out, all of us aren't going to be here by then. Who knows? You know, so, but that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next will be Elliot Larson.
Hi, I'm Elliot Larson, 415 Mcmillan Street. I think Jeannie and people, and when we had the meeting with the planning commission, kind of went over our feelings about what's going to affect us, property value and whatnot. My question is, why did the hospital change their minds? Did the city council or the city administrators talk to them? Because in 2015 or 2016, they bought 36 acres. And from what I understand, the hospital is making some money. So to have a campus was, I think, a great idea. And it seems to me that, did they come up with this idea that they don't have enough money to do it? Or is the city wondering that maybe that property would be better used for the city? And so the hospital should stay where they're at and then affect our property? The other thing is, they do have parking lots. Can't the people walk 2 blocks to the post or to the hospital? I mean, how they're affecting us, I don't understand it. 2016, they bought the 36 acres. Now all of a sudden they're changed their minds. They've been doing that many a times. They've been changing their minds. I just don't get it. Is the city going to oversee them so that we don't have problems of visual problems where the lights are going to affecting the houses nearby, the drainage? It seems like once something gets going, we have to rely on them. And a lot of times it doesn't work out the way you want it to. Most of us have been there for a long time. I greatly appreciate you would consider the residents that have been there. And I don't understand why they can't use that other property. Some of it was donated to them, and use that as parking. So I really would greatly appreciate that you talk it over, maybe table this. And is there a representative from the hospital tonight? So is this a done deal already?
And we answered, they have been at our last 2.
They have
This
been.
is-
I mean,
This is the 3rd time this has been on the agenda. They were at the first 2 meetings.
okay, all right, thank you.
Well, we're right smack dab in the middle of it, so. All right, there are no other people signed up for public comment, but I will open it up. So this will be a first call for public comment, either from Zoom or from within the chambers. This is a second call for public comment. This is a third and final call for public comment. Seeing none, hearing none, we will move right along. Agenda item 5 is our consent agenda. Just as a reminder, the consent agenda that is outlined is presented for action by the city council. Items may be removed from the consent agenda on the request of any one council member. Items not removed may be adopted by one action without debate. Removed items may be taken up either immediately after the consent agenda or placed later on the agenda at the discretion of the council president.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Opposed? That motion carries. Agenda item 6, petitions, requests, and communications. This evening we have none. Agenda item 7, resolutions and ordinances would be the 7A would be the second reading of an ordinance annexing the territory located at W6490 Campus Drive and W6492 Campus Drive to the city of Fort Atkinson.
Yeah, thank you. This is, as it notes, the second reading of this. The Planning Commission did hear this last week at their July 26th meeting. There was no comment at that meeting, and Planning Commission supported that and moved it forward here to council. This is an area that's currently in the town of Koshkonong, and the future zoning on this will be, I believe it was SR2, reflecting the current residential nature of the property. We would expect this property to at some point redevelop at that time. When we know what the developer's plan is, we would rezone it to the appropriate zoning. I'd happily answer any questions council may have related to this.
Have you been contacted by anybody with concerns out there?
I have not. I don't think city staff have either.
I know this was a pretty straightforward one that we talked about at last meeting, so I move to direct the city manager to prepare this ordinance for a third and final reading at the city council meeting on August 16th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. 7B is the third and final reading of an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Fort Atkinson to change the zoning of the properties located at 603 North 4th Street, 609 North 4th Street, 615 North 4th Street, and 403 Mcmillan Street from SR5 to I institutional.
Yeah, thank you. As you noted, this is the third reading at council for this. This was at a June 27th public hearing meeting for the Planning Commission, at which I believe the three residents that spoke this evening were there and spoke at that meeting, as well as a few of their neighbors. The common concerns that have been brought up are property values, lighting, drainage, noise, and just the general aesthetic, similar to, I think, what was heard this evening. This is a change of the zoning, so it just simply allows with this institutional zoning the hospital to expand into that area. Their current intentions are to add additional parking in that area. Those plans, engineered drawings of the planned parking area, including drainage plan, erosion plan, lighting plan, green space plan, and a vegetation or landscaping plan would all be included in a submittal to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission would review that and would have an approval and can condition that if there are elements of that they believe need to be adjusted to accommodate for the adjoining neighborhood. So there are additional approvals forthcoming on this once the hospital decides what they'd like to do. But the first step is to change the zoning to allow that possibility. And that's what we're here for this evening. I'd be happy to take any questions related to this this particular request.
Andy, I have two questions. So just to touch on what I think the point you made is important to reference on tonight's vote, that this does not, one way or the other, would not confirm plans moving forward. It just confirms the ability to basically structure plans to move forward. Would that come back before us as well after going through Planning Commission, or at that point, would that just be a Planning Commission decision?
It would not. The City Council has delegated that authority to the Planning Commission for site plan review.
Okay. And then the other thing I just wanted to ask about or more reference, I know when Jim Nelson from Fort Healthcare was here, I think it was maybe the first reading of this. He referenced that they are, I don't know if you'd call it a full study necessarily, but that they were having work done to kind of address what those specific issues were that residents had heard about or had referenced. Do we know, I know last he had said the plan or hope was that by end of summer, some of that information would be available. Do you anticipate that that information is going to be shared with the Planning Commission or the city, or will that be information that they will simply reference to then develop their plans?
They're pretty transparent. There's no requirement for Ford Healthcare to share anything other than the required submittal documents for the site plan, but they have been very transparent throughout. So I would imagine that we would have some sort of a feedback or early view at some of those plans for an understanding of what they intend to do. The public side of that, or the public input side, would be with that formal site plan submittal, and that goes out in the Planning Commission agenda packet for all residents to review, including the Planning Commission. And at that time, that's really where we see clearly what it is they intend to do. So that has dimensions on it. It has indications of where trees will be planted, where light poles will be placed, what the cutoff for the light poles may be with respect to the adjoining properties, and those kinds of details will come in play there. I'll note too that the street, 4th Street there, is something that they're hoping to potentially put forward a street vacation request for that. The intent, at least from Mr. Nelson, was that may allow them to move the parking area that they currently are anticipating further to the south and provide a wider buffer to those residential homes. I don't know the status of that, but it has been discussed. So, and that street vacation would come before the city council. And there would be, there's a pretty deliberate process for that within state statutes of notification for residents along a fairly wide corridor of 4th Street. So there'll be a process, I guess, if they decide to go that route.
And residents will still have an opportunity once those plans are developed to speak with the Planning Commission.
Yes, the site plan submittal will be the forum there would be the Planning Commission. And you'd want to, residents who want to be notified, it would be good to drop an email probably to myself, just with your information, and we'll try to remind you of when that comes before Planning Commission. Otherwise, you just sort of have to watch the website for those meetings that are the 2nd and 4th Tuesday of each month, and you can check the agenda yourself.
Thank you.
Andy, on this, with this, they're going to meet all these requirements, file all these forms. Is there a consideration in there for issues as citizens' bedrooms that the parking lot lights shine away from the house?
Yeah, that's a requirement of our zoning code. So one of the things that will be submitted is a lighting plan or lighting study. What it essentially does is it puts a light where they intend to place it on the parcel, and then they can predict what the illumination will be at the edges of the parcel. Our zoning code indicates that there is a 0 foot candle, which is a lighting element. We might better consider lumens. I think we're more knowledgeable of that. But anyway, it's basically 0 illumination at the parcel boundaries. So there shouldn't be any light shining in. Now, that's not to say that as you can see a light from a mile away in the dark. For those sorts of issues, there's shielding. So there are fixtures that have basically a shade on the back if the homes were behind me, so that the light is in fact directed out front and that you actually can't see the glow of the light from adjoining properties. So there are ways to mitigate that those are included in our zoning code.
Thank you.
In addition to just any light on light poles, even like the configuration of the parking lot. So if someone were to pull in and park and then directly aim their headlights at a house, is that something that the city would have influence over on those site plans?
We would, if it's not specific. So the buffer yard and the screening are the 2 elements that attempt to control the visual, I guess, pathway from adjoining properties into what may be a new parking lot. That usually will capture the headlight element. Now, I will say that we have to make sure that we pay attention to the types of vegetation that are used there. Obviously, deciduous vegetation loses its leaves in the wintertime. So I think when it comes before Planning Commission, we'll certainly be able to condition that approval if it doesn't meet a level, I guess, that we expect would take care of that headlight issue.
And another question I have is on some of the other site plans that we've looked at, Plan Commission, et cetera, where we've approved certain like vegetation. We've seen that it takes a while before we actually see that implemented. Would there be a time frame tied in with this, that if they were to put in vegetative screening, that it's done within a certain time frame?
Yeah, we struggle a little bit with that because projects obviously the parking lot is the most important thing for Ford Healthcare, right? As it is with a lot of other entities, but we will put that in there. The zoning code site plan approval has a deadline already associated with it. So I think that's a year from approval or somewhere in that range. Don't quote me on it. But as a planning commission member yourself and myself, we can condition these things to indicate that we want the vegetation placed such that it's growing and viable before a certain time, maybe November, because we certainly don't want the parking lot finished in November and then we can't plant anything until the following spring. So we try to control those things as much as we can, but the input from residents in that process is that's the time to really engage and kind of pay attention to some of those elements.
I think a lot of good discussion and good points have been raised, and again, this is a zoning change that's in line with the comprehensive plan, and it's being requested by the property owners. So at this point, I will make the motion to approve the ordinance to amend the official zoning map of the city of Fort Atkinson, change the zoning of the properties located at 603 North 4th Street, 609 North 4th Street, 615 North 4th Street, and 403 Mcmillan Street from SR5 single family residential to single family residential 5 to I institutional.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion or questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple points. Bear with me. I have a couple pages here. So as we take a look at from the seat of city council of a couple different items, one of the purposes of zoning ordinance is to preserve, protect, and promote property values. And sometimes I think even myself in the seat, that can be subjective, or you can't necessarily prove what the result will be at the end. One of the other items the city council is to focus on community goals and land use development. And then another thing to assess is whether or not the public benefits outweigh the potential adverse impacts of a decision like this. I do believe that our residents that have come to speak to us have done, they do have valid concerns. I do have faith in our city engineer and city manager that we can address a lot of these issues. Especially want to thank the residents for communicating their concerns respectfully and in a civil manner. I don't believe I would especially have known all of the concerns that the city should be aware of if it wasn't for your attendance and your comments, your hospitality, inviting me out to your home so that I can take a look at some of the issues and concerns that you have. Thank you also for sharing your history of living in this area. The fact that some of you have raised kids, grandkids, bought homes from your parents and kept the house in, multi-generational homes. And I can understand that, there's a lot of sentimental value tied with what, perhaps the future of this area would be. And there's a lot that we must consider when approving something like this, both from both sides, those who don't want this and those who, believe that this is, proper development. I do have the utmost faith in city engineer and city manager to apply these mitigating factors, hopefully in a way that can be suitable.
We do have a motion and a second. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Would you like us to take roll on that? Typically for an ordinance, we do roll, so that is my apologies.
Go ahead.
We will take the vote one more time as roll call, because that is our procedure for ordinance. My apologies for missing that, so
That's okay.
please call the roll.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Hartwick,
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz,
Aye.
President Scheer.
Aye. That motion carries and noted. I'll remember that for next time. Agenda item 8 is reports of officers, boards, and committees. 8A is the city manager's report.
Thank you. The city received a $600 grant from the Wisconsin Election Commission for changing the city's domain name to .gov. As mentioned during that process, it is more secure and the WEC encouraged us to do so. I want to thank our clerk for seeking out those funds and assisting with the transition. And, $600 doesn't seem like a lot of money, but every little bit helps. So thank you for that. The city staff has been working with Hoffman Development Group and Cedar Prize on additional due diligence for the city-owned properties along Banker Road. Our intention is to introduce the team and review an initial development agreement at the council meeting on August 16th. City staff has been working on 2 new tax increment districts, one on the northwest side of the city to support new development and one on the northeast side of the city to support redevelopment opportunities. The city council will have a workshop relating to these potential new tax increment districts prior to the regular council meeting on September 6th at 6 p.m. The city is closing on a capital catalyst revolving loan with Pete's Tire Inc. on August 8th. The city has also received another application for this revolving loan fund, which will be reviewed by the loan committee and the Economic Development Commission later in August. Our preliminary 2022 equalized values and net new construction numbers have been released from the Department of Revenue. The city's preliminary net new construction number to be used in calculating our levy limit and expenditure restraint eligibility is 0.34%. Recall from 2021, that number was 0.35%, which resulted in about $18,000 in additional tax levy. So we are looking at another difficult year relating to allowable levy increases. Staff are reviewing options for agenda management software. Some of the products we have been looking at have different functionalities, but the goal of that software is to increase internal efficiencies for agenda and packet production and workflows, and also increase efficiencies for city council boards, commission members, and increase access and transparency for the public. So we will continue to do some research and present something to the council when that is ready. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you. Lots of good news. I certainly wish we could dive deeper into the net new construction numbers, but I feel like that would be easily a 4-hour meeting to explain and go through the difference of a 0.34 net new and a 0.35 net new construction percentage. So a different meeting.
Finance.
Yeah. It's
Can't answer that. No,
yeah,
can't.
we can't answer public comment, but it is net new construction is related to the amount of taxes we can levy. So agenda item 9, unfinished business. This evening we have none. Agenda item 10, new business. 10A is the review and possible action relating to a request for a public monument / building review for installation of a fishing boy statue on the Riverwalk.
Good evening. Thank you. So last year, May now of 2021, I was approached by someone who wanted to donate for a statue to be placed on the Riverwalk or bike path in memory of their son. She wasn't sure where or what statue exactly, but mentioned her son was an avid fisherman and had 2 younger kids. We had many meetings last year and also this year with the donors and our park staff to determine the best location and an appropriate statue that had a consistent look with other statues in town. We determined the fishing boy statue would look great on the concrete ledge in front of the condos on the Riverwalk. The statue is from the same company as many of the other statues you see around town. And the location was chosen due to the statue being on a raised platform under a light and near the river, which is appropriate for a fishing statue. So the fishing statue will not only be special to the family, but it will serve the community as a whole by providing interest and attraction to the Riverwalk. The statue is also in line with the city's comprehensive plan, as mentioned. And then at Plan Commission, there was discussion regarding the fish that looks inviting to cut off or steal. And we had the same thought when discussing that statue with the donor. We worked with Randolph Rose to wrap the wire around the pole and bolt the fish to the pole. So it would take a lot more than just cutting off the wire to steal that fish. And then there was also discussion on working with a local artist. So all of the patina statues, which are the statues of like the children with the blue-green shirt on, have been purchased through Randolph Rose. We would prefer to keep the look consistent throughout the city with the statues. However, after Plan Commission, I did talk with Mark Dwyer, a local artist who sculpted the dog at McCoy Park and then the Three Dogs statue at Rock River Park, to see if there was interest in the opportunity. And he did seem interested. However, he mentioned the cost would be significantly higher with a local artist. And then additionally, when the donor approached me that she was looking for inspiration to decide which statue, so Randolph Rose's website was very helpful in helping her decide on a couple options. And then Randolph Rose offered 10% off. So in the end, we are recommending the Fishing Boy statue with Randolph Rose at the location proposed for this monument. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I will just note that the Plan Commission did recommend approval at their meeting.
Brooke, I just want to say I appreciate the thorough explanation and the issue of using a local artist or not always seems to come up in these discussions. So I appreciate you addressing that right away. And I think it's a great idea and it'll be just a nice one more addition to our Riverwalk. So it's definitely a great thing.
I agree. Selfishly, I have two little boys who usually plan our family walks around which statues they want to go look at or leave little rocks by. So, you know, things that add value like this, that encourage people to get outside and encourage people to use our Riverwalk maybe more often, or do some more family walks down there and head to Bicentennial Park or whatever it is. We're lucky to have individuals who want to donate money to add nice things like this to our community that would be otherwise difficult for our city to do.
So while the meeting is proceeding, we're going to ask you to remain quiet. Thank you. And make sure phones are silenced, please. I love the statue. I think it's a great spot for it. I also want to say thank you for providing an entire inventory of existing statues and artwork. It's amazing when you start to add some of those dollar amounts up to see how much has been invested in artwork and beautification along our parks and our bike path. That was really nice to see. So thank you for your work on that.
Brooke, just from my knowledge, what's the current rule for fishing by the fishing walk? You're just simply allowed to, or you're not on certain areas, or?
I'm pretty sure you're allowed to. Andy, I think, is our fisherman on board, if he knows the rules.
I think there's a couple of areas where it's not allowed, where the walk narrows considerably, but generally 90% of that river walk is open to fishing, if I had to guess.
As usually there were like cutouts where they kind of half moved out.
Yeah,
Those were designed for the fishing or
I
not?
believe they were, yeah,
So that you wouldn't interfere with the straightaway walk path.
correct, yep.
Unless anybody else has other questions, I move to approve the request for a public monument building review for installation of a Fishing Boy statue on the Riverwalk at the location outlined in the staff report.
Second,
We have a motion and a couple of seconds. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. 10B is the review and possible action related to replacement and update of HVAC controls for the wastewater utility main control building at a cost of not more than $43,952.
Good evening. So our 2022 CIP included 52,000 for the replacement of the current controls and also the addition of a unifying supervisory control. The original controls are from 1992. As you might guess, they're not supported anymore, probably for about the last 15 years. And then, of course, not repairable either if something were to go wrong with those. The main driver behind this was we've not been able to do any kind of scheduling or, temperature setbacks, things like that, since they were installed, actually. They kind of run independently and however they originally were set up, and we don't really have access to much of what they can do. So we have 5 local, 5 air handlers that each have their own separate control panel that operate just that air handler. They're independent of each other, so they don't know what each other are doing right now. There's also a sixth that I forgot to mention in the memo that we have. It's not an air handler, but we have another controller that will be used for tying in our boiler and chiller that we have for heating, or, for heating, the main heating of the boilers. Of course, the chiller is the air conditioning unit. And those then also will be tied in with the addition of a supervisory panel that will give us access to all the setbacks and all the nice things to try and save some money and control the temperature of the building more accurately. It's been an issue off and on over the years, of course. So we got three prices from some contractors that are, one of them actually is working at the plant now on our project. The other two are ones that we've worked with in the past, under one of them under a different name. They didn't used to be called the Helm Group. So we received three prices, made sure there was close to the same proposals as you can. It's not always so easy. Everybody has their own idea of how they want to do things. As long as they're accomplishing what we want, we kind of leave that to them and not tell them how they should do it. So we got the three prices back. We have a price from AES of Milwaukee for $68,238. Helm Group of Freeport, Illinois for $43,952. And Bassett Mechanical of Kaukauna for $51,512. I've reviewed all the pricings, and everything was that we want to get accomplished is covered in all three of these quotes. So we recommend the quote the Helm Group of Freeport for $43,952. And that would include 6 controllers and then a supervisory control. So that would allow us access, and actually allow us access in the future if we want to be able to connect remotely off a telephone, or off of a cell phone or computer or tablet or whatever we want to be able to do. Most of the time that's not, we like that for our alarms and other controls at the plant, but not quite as important for this. But just being able to get it actually temperature settings easily and make setbacks will be great. Any questions on any of that? All kinds of things that were in here. I had all the quotes included, which are
Paul,
somewhat understandable.
just curious, Paul, and you gave a really thorough explanation, which is appreciated, but I was just curious why the bid from the out-of-state company is so much lower than the two from Wisconsin.
I'm not sure. The Helm Group actually, they do have offices, like they have office in Milwaukee area too. Their main office is Freeport. But they all looked at the same things. The one I'm almost thinking the AES one, because AES is the company that is working on the HVAC controls in our new filter building. So I don't know if they gave a price that was with prevailing wages and things like that, that boosted that or not. I made it clear to them that this was separate from this project, our big project that's going on. So I'm not quite sure, why they came in. What they're providing is pretty much just a different brand of the same things. So I'm not sure why they came in high. The other two were a little closer. Bassett has done some work for us in the past on some we did a 1-year contract with them for some maintenance on our existing equipment, not the controllers, but on the air handlers and makeup air units that we have in the plant.
Well, I've got a question. So I've read all the contracts. So one thing I noticed was a difference is the Helm Group. They weren't very explicit in like the warranty or the length of warranty of equipment. Do you feel like that would be like a significant decision factor? But being as they're
I think
$8,000 cheaper.
Yeah, no, I believe, I don't know if he just didn't include it, but I recall that they had a 1-year warranty on their work, I thought, on their work and the equipment. The equipment would be by the manufacturers anyway. So their warranty would only be based on their equipment or on their work, making sure it was satisfactory for that. But I could double check that, but when they were out, I believe we talked about that, tried to cover that with everybody.
I'm looking at their exclusion/clarification sections. One says no overtime included. I'm hopeful that, it will go according to plan.
Yeah, there shouldn't be any overtime.
So the other one would be all IP networking / routing done by others. Are we anticipating any major networking requirements by plugging this in and
No.
getting it going?
No, we talked about it. It's already compatible with our network. You just use a browser to access it, so you don't need anything special. So once it's available on our network, it would be able to be accessed. So that's part of the reason where I really wanted the control panel with access right there too, so that we would not have to necessarily go on a computer, to do it. So, but if there's anything that it would be minor, then we would just pick that up as part of our, charges with Agent Tech.
And then
Not anticipating anything really with that. Way it was described to me is we wouldn't have anything once it's connected into our network, by just a cable to our switch, that it would be there. We'll be able to see it.
and then they actually have units in stock, or are we
Yeah,
waiting on supply
they
chain?
did when I talked to them, but I checked with everybody recently to update prices to make sure they were good. And I did not ask them at that time if they had any, so I don't know.
Okay.
So we'll see. We did not have any problems getting that kind of equipment for the project. It wasn't not this many, but it was a couple of controllers that they were using a different brand. But they didn't have any problem with that, but we've had problems with other things.
I'm guessing that all three of the bids had warranties that were similar.
As I recall, they do. I don't know.
There wasn't
Because
one else.
equipment is pretty standardly a year. Work is usually what the difference is. Most people want to make sure you're happy with what they did.
Because I know in the automotive world, they can get a starter with a 6-month warranty versus a starter with a lifetime warranty.
Right.
And it's really the same starter for more money. It's not
Well,
a
and
better product.
yeah, and in the home HVAC business, it's common to see like 10-year warranties on a compressor for for an air conditioning system, or whatever, on a furnace. In the commercial world, you don't see that. 1 year usually, that's it.
I want to thank you for your due diligence and making sure it's cost efficient for the city.
Thank you. Yeah, it was one of those things where you spend a lot of time on something that isn't necessarily our core business out there, but you have to do it because you want to make sure you're getting something that's going to last. I mean, even though we didn't have the access, we've had very little problems with these other controllers for 30 years. They just don't do what we want them to do.
Obviously, it's great news anytime something comes in under CIP budget as well. So to Bruce's
Mhm.
point, certainly thank you for putting in the time to get those 3 different quotes. I would move to approve the replacement and update of HVAC controls for the wastewater utility main control building at a cost of not more than $43,952.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And I will clarify the warranty stuff with them before I send a PO out, just to make sure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Right, thanks.
Agenda item 11, miscellaneous. This evening we have none. Agenda item 12, claims appropriations and contract payments. 12A is the review and possible action relating to the verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorization of payment.
I move to approve the list of verified claims presented by the Director of Finance and authorize payment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. This will be a roll call vote.
Councilman Becker,
Aye.
Councilman Hartwick.
Aye.
Councilman Johnson,
Aye.
Councilman Schultz.
Aye.
President Shear.
Aye. Takes us to agenda item 13, which is adjournment.
And to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and the second. All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.